Hi, this is Bob. In the previous tutorial, I explained how to check the setup of your daylight system and then start a new job and create a new scene. I then imported all the source media from a day's shooting for an episode of a TV series into the new daylight scene. Okay, so this is where we got to last time. The shots view in the player workspace is displaying a thumbnail for each shot in our daylight scene. We can select a shot to view by clicking on it. The currently selected shot has a blue background, and its metadata appears in the metadata display panel here. If I press the play button, either in the on-screen play controls or on my hardware control surface, the shot plays back. Now, as I have an external image monitor connected, you can't see the playback, so I'll just switch over to that monitor now. Note that I can also start and stop playback using the spacebar on the keyboard. Certain metadata can be viewed as an overlay on the image monitor by pressing K on the keyboard. Here we have the path to the current file, its resolution, real ID, and source timecodes. Once playback reaches the end of this shot, it will automatically continue onto the next shot in the scene. There are other playback modes, which will loop within the current shot, or within a selected range of shots. I'll cover those in another tutorial, along with many other useful playback features. Okay, I'll now switch back to the UI screen so I can show you another way to view the shots. Currently, we are in grid view, and if I want to see more of the metadata for each shot, I can add it from the metadata items drop-down list here. For example, as well as the file name, I may want to see the event number, the source timecode, and the file size of each shot. The metadata is displayed below each thumbnail. However, this view is now getting a bit cluttered, so instead I'll switch over to List View by clicking on this button. These two buttons switch between List and Grid View. List View shows each shot on a different row with selected metadata displayed in columns. Again, I can choose the metadata I want to see using the drop-down list selector. Note that I can choose different metadata items for the list and the grid views. The shots can now be sorted by clicking on any of the column headings. Clicking on the heading a second time will reverse the sort direction. Once you've sorted by a specific metadata item, you can do a secondary sort by shift-clicking on another column. For example, the list is now sorted by tape ID with the shortest shots displayed first. As well as viewing the metadata, the list view also allows us to edit or add new metadata. For example, we can now go through and add additional data which was not recorded into the media files, such as missing tape IDs or scene and take information. Now, in order to do this, I'll need to view the image so I can see the information on the slate. However, rather than keep switching between my two monitors so you can see what's going on, I'm going to choose a different system setup. This setup will configure my system for single monitor working. Even though I have an external monitor connected for viewing the images, this setup will add an image display window into the workspace on my user interface monitor. This is not necessarily the best way to work, as my UI display is not a calibrated reference monitor. Also, I will lose some of the UI workspace area. But for the purposes of this tutorial, it'll make it easier for you to see what's going on. Okay, so I've activated the setup, now I have to restart daylight. Note that I hadn't saved the scene before selecting the exit option, so daylight is asking me if I want to save the changes. So now daylight has restarted, I can reopen the scene I was working on. The playback image is now displayed at the top of my UI monitor, rather than on my external reference monitor. I can change its size by dragging on the lower splitter bar. I can also toggle into full screen image mode by pressing F8 on the keyboard. This will come in handy later when I want to double check what an image looks like when it's full screen. I'm now going to show you how to quickly update the shot metadata. Firstly, I want to add a reel number or tape ID to those shots which don't have one, to avoid potential problems later in the edit. If I scrub through to the slate on this shot by dragging the cursor along the navigation bar, I can check for the reel ID. It says C002. So I'll type that into the text field in the tape column in the shots view. I'll now move on and check the next shot. Simply clicking the mouse in the next row will skip on to the next shot. This one is also C002. And now I'll check the next one, and so on. Okay, now I'm going to add scene and take information. I'll go back to the first one of these shots, and again I can read the information from the slate. This is scene 9B, so the naming system for this production will make that 809B, and it's shot setup 3, so I'll add _3. And now, if I hit Tab, it moves the cursor into the next field, and I'll enter take 1. Now I could go through and do this manually for each take, but I noticed that these 5 shots are consecutive takes from the same scene, so instead I'm going to use an automatic numbering function within Daylight. I need to select these 5 shots as a group. To do this, first I command click on the first one. It now has a red outline showing that it is part of a group. Next, I shift click on the last one, and now all 5 shots are part of the group. I can now type in the scene number for any of the shots in the group, and as soon as I hit Tab or press Enter, I see this dialog box appear asking me if I want to set the scene to 809B_3 for these 5 shots, with an incrementing take number. The first take is already set to number 1, which is correct, so I'll click on OK. Now you can see that Daylight has entered the scene and take numbers for me. This can save a lot of time, especially if there are many takes per shot. Now while I still have these 5 shots selected as a group, I'll show you how you can apply the same setting to multiple shots. These 5 shots all came from camera C, so I want to set that metadata for all of them. First, I need to enable Group Modify mode by pressing Command G on the keyboard. Now the red outlines are flashing, indicating that any changes I make will be applied to all the shots in the group. Note that this also works for other operations, such as changing a grade, so it's also referred to as Grouped Grading mode. Okay, so all I need to do is to add camera C to one of the shots, and it will be applied to all of the shots in this group. I can now disable the grouped mode by pressing Command G again, and then release the group by pressing Shift Command A, or choosing Deselect All Shots from the Select menu. I could now go through and manually add scene and take information to all the other shots, but I'm going to leave it for now, as we should be able to add a lot of that metadata automatically when we sync to the audio files. I'll be showing you how to do that a little later on. The next thing I'd like to show you is how to make selections of shots using the filter function. Currently, the shots view is showing us all the shots in the scene. That's 121 shots, as indicated by the number of events we have here. If I'm only interested in, say, the shots from a particular reel or tape ID, then I can filter out all the other shots by applying a filter. Filters are set up using the options at the bottom of the shots view. If the filter definition area is not visible, it can be opened up by clicking on this little triangle here. So if I only want to view the shots with a specific tape ID, for example, then I can add tape as an item to the filter and then specify the tape ID. I can also find all the shots which have a partial match, for example shots with a tape ID which starts with A04. We can do that using the starts with or contains option. We can select multiple matches using the OR function. For example, tape IDs which start with A045 or A046. Our filtered list now contains these 17 shots. Notice that we are still seeing the same picture in the image display. This is because we still have the same shot selected, even though it may not be currently visible in the shots list. If I want to narrow it down even further, for example only show shots which were filmed after 6 o'clock, then I can add another filter item. Now we are looking at the 7 shots which were recorded after 6 PM on reels A45 and A46. There are many reasons for creating a filtered list of shots like this. For example, there may have been a change to the lighting rig at some point, which the director wants to check from all the different camera angles on each take. Once you've created a filter selection, it can be saved by adding a new tab to the shots view. I'll do that by clicking on the plus button here. I can now give the tab a name by double-clicking on it. When I add a new tab, notice that the current filter selection is applied to the new tab. So we currently have the same filter selection on the original tab and the new tab. To remove filter items, you simply click on them in the filter definition box. Notice the red strike-through line indicating that the item will be removed from the filter when I click on it. Now if I click on the new filter I created and press play, you will notice that playback only includes the shots currently visible in the filtered shots view. With a combination of filtering and sorting using the metadata columns, it's possible to play back specific shots in a certain order, which can be very useful when viewing various different takes of different scenes, for example. Okay, now I'll just create a few more filters to separate out the shots from each camera, as this will come in handy when we do a bit of grading later on. Right, now I've shown you how to import your footage, manually change the metadata, and then arrange your shots. In the next tutorial, I will show you how to apply some basic grades to your shots.